Bonsoir.
Good evening. This is our fourth Ariane 5 launch in 2012. And tonight, we're about to launch two communication satellites for two clients that are quite different, but also quite similar. They're quite different because, on the one hand, we have Intelsat, and this will be tonight the 53rd satellites we are launching for Intelsat. This includes also all the satellites we already have launched for other organizations which have joined this company since it started. This shows the quality of our relationship with Intelsat and the trust we have won over the years, for over 30 years, from, I believe, to be the largest satellite operator across the world. On the other hand, Avanti, a new market entrant whose second satellite we're launching. Avanti, which is a London-based company, is in the process of deploying the Ka band across all of Europe. Although these two clients are quite different in size, they're similar in that they have demonstrated unfailing loyalty towards Ariane 5 and Arianespace. This must be emphasized, and I think they're right, because we now have behind us 49 successes in a row for a launcher, and success continues this year. We already have had 3 letter-perfect launches this year and have contracted for 4 other Ariane 5 launches. I'm sure that after tonight's launch this will continue. But now let's watch together this new Ariane 5 ECA Intelsat 20 and HYLAS to launch.
Greetings, everybody, wherever you may be, and welcome once again to French Guiana, the home of the Ariane family, for today's launch of Arianespace flight number 208. All is well. We are on time and on target for liftoff of the 5th Ariane launch of the year from the space base here. Glad you're with us because we're lifting over 10 tons to GTO, Geostationary Transfer Orbit, 10.1 tons to be exact, which is a new performance record for Ariane 5. Joshua Jampel here. Hope you'll stay with us. A lot of action ahead. We're coming to you live, as we always do, from the Jupiter Mission Control Center, which is the nerve center of the space base here in French Guiana. We'll get started with a look at the launch vehicle. She stands roughly 50 meters tall. She is set up in 2 parts. They call them composites here. The lower composite consisting of the main cryogenic stage, and the 2 boosters strapped on either side. The upper stage, like the lower stage, burns a single engine. The upper stage also includes other vital elements, the vehicle equipment bay, which is the brains of the whole outfit, and the fairing. And inside the fairing, of course, are the satellites. We'll describe each stage in turn as it is functioning. The window tonight, 1 hour beginning at 17:54 local, an hour earlier for the U.S. Eastern, 22:54 Paris, an hour earlier for the U.K. Time now to meet some of the key players responsible for making the mission happen. You saw Jean-Yves Le Gall. This is in Arianespace's Flight Directorate, top management. Patrick Loire, there, head of the local Arianespace Kourou facilities, the local contact. And Edouard Perez, the chief technical officer. Should anything unexpected come up during the mission, you'll see these gentlemen on the phones with their teams here at the base and back in Paris. Any decisions that have to be made will be made by them. We got a close look at the launch vehicle a moment ago. We're going to sneak a peek inside the fairing now for a glimpse of our 2 passengers. Intelsat 20 has the upper berth. She will be separated first. The upper passenger is usually the heavier one. Intelsat weighing in at 6 tons. Underneath Intelsat 20 is a carrying structure called the Silda. We'll talk more about Silda a bit later on. Beneath the Silda is our second passenger to be separated last, HYLAS 2, the lighter passenger tonight, 3.3 tons. We want to say hi to all our friends at Intelsat in Washington, D.C., also to the hundreds of you out in Johannesburg at MultiChoice, and to those of you following the broadcast at the HYLAS offices in the Olympic City of London, England. Continuing our presentation of the players, this is the commercial side now. The program directors, Arianespace's customer interface, Beatrice Romero, project manager for Intelsat 20. Arianespace offers customers a one-stop shop single interface. Our first film tonight, we're going to have a quick look at Intelsat 20, presented by Beatrice Romero.
Intelsat is the largest communications satellite fleet operator and is a well-known customer for Arianespace, as Intelsat and Arianespace have been working together for the last 30 years. Intelsat 20 is actually the 53rd Intelsat satellite that will be launched by Arianespace. As you can see, it's a long-standing relationship between these two companies, which is based on mutual trust. We look forward to continuing this partnership with Intelsat, and I would be very glad to see you again for the next launch of Intelsat DLA-1 in about 2 years from now.
Outside on the pad, all is well. Ariane waiting, the clock ticking. The Arianespace commercial teams for our other passenger, Christophe Bardou, project manager for HYLAS 2. We're in the middle of a busy year here. We're launching for the second time in less than a month. You might recall our last mission flew on July 5th. The rhythm is picking up here at the space base. We're going to go over to Christophe Bardou now for our next short film, a presentation of our second passenger, HYLAS 2. We'll be back.
With the launch of this evening of HYLAS 2, Arianespace is very proud to be contributing to the development of its client Avanti, which is a pioneering company in the field of broadband space telecommunications applications. Taking advantage of the reliability of Ariane 5, Avanti has been entrusting Arianespace with the launch of its second satellite, following HYLAS 1, which was launched in November 2010. This flight also to place the company with a satellite of the Intelsat fleet, as is the case tonight. The preparation campaign for this launch gave our clients the opportunity to meet again.
Some other key players involved in the mission tonight, the mission director.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
And the DDO, whose voice you just heard, she's going to be calling out the key milestones. She's going to call out now the 7-minute mark.
Top, H0 moins 7 minutes.
The DDO is Amy Sip tonight, the first female DDO we've ever had. She's on her third mission, and she announced the 7-minute mark because it's a very important milestone, beginning what is known as the synchronized sequence or the automatic sequence. This is a complex series of operations running down to liftoff, gradually letting the launcher become autonomous. Power is passing from the ground, which controls everything right now, to the two onboard computers, which will control everything afterward. So there are hundreds of pressures and parameters to be checked out during this time. There's a standard order of operations for every launch campaign, and in our next film, you'll see how Ariane 5 is put together. The launch campaign begins with the erection of the main cryogenic or first stage in the launcher integration building. The solid boosters are transferred here and mated to each side of the main stage. The upper stage is then positioned atop the first. This composite, lacking the satellites, is then transferred to the final assembly building. Here, the two passengers are added. They can be because while the launcher has been assembled, both Intelsat 20 and HYLAS 2 have been readied in their own buildings on another part of the base. Inside these clean rooms, satellite teams check their vital systems, then fill their tanks with the fuel they will need for their lives in space. Launcher and satellite teams hold daily meetings during the campaign to coordinate these events. Arianespace, with its customers, oversees the satellite's transfer to the final assembly building. They're mated atop the launcher underneath the fairing. HYLAS 2 was placed in the lower berth, Intelsat 20 in the upper position. The launcher, now complete, will soon be ready to fly. The day before launch, Ariane 5 on her launch table is slowly rolled out to the pad on a rail track. Her voyage is about to begin. that voyage beginning in less than 5 minutes. Other dramatis personae, the satellite mission directors here on the Intelsat side. Satellite mission directors are responsible for the chronology. They decide if their satellite is ready for launch following the campaign and its preparation, meeting with their team, giving the okay for each stage of its preparation. We're in the middle of this synchronized sequence, as we mentioned, and the professionals say this is the most intense moment of the entire launch campaign, these 7 minutes before liftoff, 1,001 things to check and verify and monitor. What's the mood 4 minutes before launch? Well, it's a moment of intense concentration. You can see it in the eyes, most of the eyes, whether or not on the camera or on the computer screens, following the numbers, ears on the telephones, with their teams here, back home, and around the world as we approach liftoff. Don't forget, tonight represents long months, years, sometimes, of work for many of these people here. We're going to show you some other of the key players involved, responsible for the launch tonight. We're going to go outside of Jupiter Mission Control where we are, because there are other places which are very busy tonight. And one of those is the launch zone, as you can imagine, where the launch management teams are. The COL, that's the launch operations manager, and his people are closer to the launch pad. There's the COL. Closer to the launch pad than we are here in Jupiter. They're 3 kilometers from the pad. We're about 15 kilometers away. Basically, you're looking at 3 teams. One coordinates the launcher campaign and the countdown. They're doing this right now and have been, in fact, working nonstop since yesterday morning and the beginning of Ariane's transfer to the pad. That's all under the direction of the COL. There's a second team up there guaranteeing flight readiness, and they sign off on the okay to fly and on the okay to transfer to pad, which occurred yesterday. And there's a third team, which is a quality team, independent from these two. In all, about 200 people up there. All these posts, you see, can have a backup. Each operational person has a double who can take over if need be. Some of them here in Jupiter arrive very early. The first operations begin somewhere around 4.5 hours before launch. We're about 2.5 minutes before launch. The green status panels there on the left again, these are a real-time summary of the different launch services provided by the base. And we check them from time to time during the first part of the mission before lifting off. Now all is as it should be. It's all green. The status of these services, you saw them there, launchers, satellites, weather, telemetry, tracking stations, safety, and others, are sent in here to Jupiter by the different outposts. This is why we call Jupiter the nerve center of the space base. The status panels give basically a go, no-go, green, red resume of everything it takes to launch. Green means okay, red means the opposite. This is a split-screen image. Now, one of the last things you'll see before liftoff merits a brief explanation. Liquid hydrogen on the right, liquid hydrogen on the left, liquid oxygen on the right. These are the propellant feeder arms going into the upper stage. And if we back away, we'll get a better view of that, and you'll see what I mean. This stage, the upper stage, needs to be filled up to the last minute. Why? Well, because the cold propellant we're using, cryogenics, evaporates in this heat. And when I say cold, I mean it. Liquid oxygen at minus 160 degrees. The DDO is going to call out the 1 minute mark.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top. H0 moins 1 minute.
And liquid hydrogen at minus 240 degrees. They boil off and need constant topping up. We are ready for liftoff. We're in the final 60 seconds. You are ready for liftoff. All you need to know is the ignition sequence. Briefly, here's what to watch for. It begins with the cryogenic arms. You can see them. They're the yellow bars on the top going into the upper stage. They will pull back at minus 5 seconds. That begins everything. At 0, there's a nice shot of the yellow bars there. They will retract. At 0, the DDO will call out allumage, which is ignition. But we don't lift off. The main engine is lit. But count to 7 for 7 seconds. The computers are checking the performance in that engine while it's burning on the pad. They do it twice.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final.
We'll let you watch the countdown. We'll be back after liftoff.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage UAV, décollage. paramètres à bord sont normaux.
Beautiful, beautiful daytime shots, which we don't always get, of Ariane roaring off the pad into the sky. Over French Guiana, the DDO is saying all is nominal, all is okay. On board at 17:54 local time, and right on time, she took off, lifting off from the ground with Intelsat and HYLAS 2. These shots are always impressive for the people at the observation posts around the site, which are always full up. I don't know if you saw it, minus 12 seconds, the computers gave the command to open the water deluge. They sent in 1,500 cubic meters of water, mainly to deaden the noise. Right now, Ariane weighs 775 tons.
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
And everything's normal. She's burning 5 tons of fuel every second, 2.5 tons in each booster, and the core stage is burning another 300 kilos per second. Ariane is following the program in the onboard computer, which gives all the orders, including stage separations. We'll soon start to see those. The vehicle equipment bay is the cockpit of the launcher, if you will, orchestrating all the flight commands, all the piloting orders, and all the equipment on board is doubled, which means there are backup systems for everything. We're in the first of 4 flight phases. The first 3 are powered, the last is not. We'll describe each in turn and in detail so you can follow Ariane as she heads across the Atlantic, where she'll separate the 2 satellites over both coasts of Africa. Right now, the first flight phase, the single Vulcan core engine and the 2 boosters are burning. The boosters will burn just over 2 minutes. They're the first to be extinguished, and you'll hear the DDO call that out. And that looks like the flame out of the boosters right there.
Séparation des étages, accélération à poudre.
And right on time, the DDO has called out separation. You see the 3 points of light, 2 boosters on each side, and the single point of light in the middle. That's the core stage that continues burning. The boosters fall 500 kilometers from the shore in a protected area. Before the boosters are empty of their fuel, the push diminishes, and this is what the onboard computer senses, a drop in acceleration, and decides to separate them, and they're separated 1 second later. Beautiful.
La trajectoire est normale.
We may even see the fairing separation on the screen. Take a look on the upper left. You have the cursor crawling up the line there. There are actually 2 lines. One is superimposed on the other. One is the nominal trajectory. One is the real-time trajectory, as long as they're one on top of another. We're right where we should be. And below that, 2 lines, A in some numbers and V in some numbers.
Séparation de la coiffe.
A is altitude and V is velocity, our speed. And we've just had separation of the fairing right on time. You can see what that looks like. There are 2 halves. The other half is out of camera range. They're blown away by a series of pyrotechnic cords. We don't need the fairing anymore. You can see Intelsat there, the blue box, exposed to the elements, because over 100 kilometers we're out of the Earth's atmosphere.
La propulsion est normale.
And fairing has done its job, which is to protect the satellites from frictions and vibrations. Again, on the left of the screen, the velocity, we're approaching 2.5 kilometers per second. The speed we need to inject a satellite is roughly somewhere around 9 kilometers per second, so watch for that. The Vulcan engine, it's a small box, roughly 50 meters square, weighs 250 kilos. That's burning now in the upper stage. More of the mission in a moment, but for now, the latest news from Arianespace.
Successes continue for Arianespace. On her last mission, July 5th, an Ariane 5 launched a telecom platform, EcoStar 17, and the MSG-3 weather satellite. It was the 3rd launch of the year for Ariane.
Arianespace signed with CNES to launch a small scientific satellite called Taranis, tool for analysis of radiation from lightning and sprites. Weighing 200 kilograms, it will study transitory light effects in the ionosphere and the magnetosphere.
With France's Minister for Research looking on, Arianespace and Intelsat signed July 10th in Paris for launch of a new satellite, the 28th for the 2 companies whose partnership goes back 30 years.
Arianespace was also present at the 39th COSPAR conference in Mysore, India in mid-July. COSPAR, the International Committee for Space Research, highlighted scientific programs for the study of the universe, of matter, of the Earth, and the environment.
Customers got a good look at Vega at the first Vega Users Day in Rome, July 9th. Arianespace presented the new light launcher whose maiden mission fully qualified it. Arianespace has already signed 4 contracts for Vega.
The next Soyuz launch, her third, is set for October here at the spaceport in French Guiana, and the campaign has already begun. Work is underway on the pre-launch checks on the frigate upper stage for the mission to orbit another 2 satellites in the Galileo constellation. And it's also been a very busy time at Baikonur. Arianespace launched 3 Soyuz missions from the Kazakhstan base in 2 weeks on July 15th and 22nd, the 1789th and 90th Soyuz flights, the 5th and 6th of the year already. Then just yesterday, we launched the 1791st Soyuz, the 7th mission of 2010. The French Guiana site, chosen in 1964, provides a large opening on the ocean, low population density, and nearness to the equator. And we have a new director of the Guyana Space Center here in our next film, his first interview. Bernard Chamoul now oversees facilities for the 3 launchers in the Ariane family. He has an important and many-sided role as head of the space base.
The CSG is currently operating 3 launch systems, Ariane, Soyuz and Vega. My mission will be to make sure that launches take place at an ever-increasing rate and to help the Space Center gear up to cruising speed. All our energies are going to be focused on this single goal. Of course, we'll not lose sight of performance goals, availability and security both. We must ensure the same degree of safety and reliability for operations as well as launches while respecting the environment. Over and beyond this operational program, we must modernize the Space Center and get it ready for the future while striving to implement innovative systems.
The CSG has another role. For nearly 40 years, with its many industrial partners, it has been helping grow the local economy here in French Guiana across many sectors.
Our mission as a key partner of the economy of French Guiana is to promote and support economic development through targeted action programs and training and support activities, as well as investing in basic infrastructure.
In space and on the ground, the CSG remains Europe's spaceport. The best situated launch base in the world keeps Europe autonomous in space.
Thanks to French Guiana, CSG is providing Europe with independent access to space.
Ariane performing flawlessly up there. You can see on the left altitude and speed. We're climbing and gathering speed. The first stage is still burning. The second flight phase that we're in, another minute to go of fuel. She burns 9 minutes in all, 175 tons of fuel. We are about to be picked up by our first downrange tracking station over the border in Brazil, if we haven't already been, at a city called Natal, run by Brazil's Department of Defense for CNES in an agreement with the European Space Agency. It'll see the first stage burnout and separation. All of Ariane's trajectory has been designed to be followed from the ground, whether by land or by sea. The launcher is sending radar and telemetry back, and a network of stations, 5 of them tonight, keep constant watch on the health of her vital systems. Their antennas are picking up the signal,
Séparation de l'étage principal.
following her progress. And we've just had, right on time, the separation of the lower stage. You see what that looks like.
Allumage de l'étage supérieur.
And ignition of the upper stage. There's 3 orders given by the onboard computer in about 30 seconds. Extinction of the lower stage, separation of the lower stage, and ignition of the top stage. You can see what's left of the composite. The first stage gone, we separate another 14,000 kilos of dry mass. We're in the third and final powered flight phase, burning on a single engine like the first. Carries a lot less fuel. A lot less fuel, though. 12 tons of liquid oxygen, 2.5 tons of liquid hydrogen. It'll burn for 16 minutes. And we're being followed now, as you can see, by Ascension Island. That's our second downrange tracking station in the Atlantic. Tiny island in the South Atlantic. We're in the second half of the mission. We can focus on the passengers. Arianespace and Intelsat go back a long way. Take a look.
Intelsat 20 is our most powerful satellite ever, with nearly 22 kilowatt of power at beginning of life. Equipped with 60 Ku-band and 24 C-band transponders, the satellite will deliver VSAT and cellular backhaul services to 4 continents. The satellite also hosts the largest DTH platform ever for Africa.
This is my fourth launch campaign with Arianespace since 2008. So I've developed a very familiar and very good working relationship with the people in Arianespace and CSG. However, this is our first time working with Beatrice Romero, and I can say she's done an excellent job working with Intelsat and Space Systems Loral since we've kicked off this project in October of 2010. For the Intelsat 20 campaign, it's been a very effective and efficient campaign. We arrived here on the 27th of June, and we've not lost one day of schedule in arriving to this launch day. We have received excellent support from Arianespace, Astrium, RUAG, and CSG. And of course, Space Systems Loral has done a fantastic job in preparing our spacecraft for launch and its future mission. And I'd also like to thank our friends at Freelance for making our stay here in Kourou a very pleasant and enjoyable one. Thank you.
For now nearly 30 years, going back to our first launch together in 1983, Arianespace has been able to demonstrate that unique quality time and time again.
Intelsat 20, built by Space Systems Loral in California and Palo Alto, and built to serve 24 years. I think it's the first time we've had such a long lifespan. It's due, we are told, to more xenon on board, that's the gas used in electrical propulsion, and more standard chemical propulsion aboard than is usual. The industry trend is toward electric propulsion now, which means less weight in fuel, although more in solar panels, but still overall a gain in mass, I believe. Propellant, of course, the satellite's lifeblood in space. Our next film, also on Intelsat, give you a good look at the company.
Hello, I'm Dave McGlade, CEO of Intelsat. Today we embark on the latest Intelsat mission with the launch of Intelsat 20, one of 5 launch campaigns we're executing in 2012. Intelsat 20 will operate at its orbital slot of 68.5 degrees east, starting in the fall. The satellite will replace existing services on Intelsat 10 and 7. Its C and Ku band payloads are optimized for high-power distribution of video, voice, and broadband services in Europe, the Middle East, Russia, and Asia. The Intelsat 20 video neighborhood reaches over 20 million pay TV subscribers in Asia, and will also host a key DTH platform for multi-choice in Africa. I want to thank Arianespace, Space Systems Loral, and the Intelsat Space Systems Planning and Management team for all of their hard work on making this launch possible. We look forward to providing excellent service to our customers with this satellite and anticipate a long and healthy life for Intelsat 20.
In 1965, Intelsat launched the first commercial communications satellite.
Today, we are the leading provider of fixed satellite services worldwide.
Our fleet covers 99% of the world's populated regions.
We serve many of the world's leading media and communications companies, multinational corporations, regional data networking customers, and the government sector.
Intelsat provides seamless, secure, and easy access to information and entertainment on land and sea.
Customers depend on our global network, technical leadership, and commercial innovation to better serve their customers.
Intelsat's history is all about innovation. As Intelsat launches future state-of-the-art satellites, we increase our expertise, experience, and capabilities to support the evolving universe of satellite services.
Satellite operators look to Intelsat for acquisition, program management, launch, and in-orbit operations.
Intelsat offers the most comprehensive distribution network in the world, using the latest integrated service technologies.
We're fueling next-generation growth of HDTV, IPTV, direct-to-home distribution, ethnic programming, broadband, and VSAT solutions.
Our primary focus is serving customers and delivering innovation to allow your business communications to work with the speed of the future. Contact Intelsat and we'll show you how we can work for you.
Intelsat, connecting planet Earth.
The second stage burning normally, all is well on board. Tonight's is the 14th Loral-built satellite to be launched by an Ariane 5, but it's the 40th, 40 Loral, to be launched by the Ariane program. The last, well, that was the last launch on July 5th, EchoStar 17. But Ariane has launched many other Loral satellites, including a lot of the Intelsat fleet, 6 Intelsat 9s, 5 Intelsat 7s, and all the way back to 1986 and Flight 18, the first 3 in the 5A series on an Ariane 2. And our next film comes from SS Loral, builders of Intelsat 20.
Space Systems Loral is the world's foremost provider of commercial satellites, with more capacity on orbit than any other manufacturer. The company designed and built Intelsat 20 for Intelsat, the world's leading provider of satellite services. Intelsat 20 is the 47th spacecraft that SSL has provided to Intelsat, and it will be the most powerful satellite in the Intelsat fleet.
Over the years, Intelsat has bought more than 40 satellites from Space Systems Loral. We have been very pleased with the 1300 product line, and today about half of our fleet is made out of Space Systems Loral satellites.
It has been 40 years that we work together and we deliver many satellites. Intelsat 20 is one of the most complicated that we have delivered, and it stands as an excellent example of successfully working together, both with the Palo Alto resident team and the Washington team. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our long-term customer Intelsat for the trust that they have placed in Space Systems Loral for so many years. It's been a pleasure to support the Intelsat business over the years, delivering so many satellites for communications around the world.
This program would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of all the teams involved. I would like to thank Space Systems Loral, Arianespace, and Intelsat for a job well done.
From an old friend, Intelsat, we turn to a newer friend, our second passenger, HYLAS 2, built by Orbital Sciences Corporation of Virginia. The fleet is a partnership with the European Space Agency. HYLAS 1 was already more powerful than the traditional Ku-band satellite, and HYLAS 2 brings 3 times the bandwidth of her elder sister. Lucy Edge now of HYLAS on Arianespace and her satellite.
HYLAS 2 is a 3-ton class satellite with a roughly 5 kilowatt Ka-band payload. The 15-year mission provides data communication services across Europe and the high-growth markets of the Middle East and Africa. The satellite is based on Orbital Science Corporation's highly successful Star 2 platform and is their first fully Ka-band payload. We carry 24 fixed beams and a steerable spot beam on board, and the antennas are from MDA in Canada. HYLAS 2 utilizes the latest Ka-band technology to deliver high-speed, low-cost two-way data communications. Our services reach areas which are not properly served by terrestrial telecommunications networks, and HYLAS 2 supports a wide range of applications including broadband internet access, SCADA for industry, mobile backhaul, and security and defense services. The launch of HYLAS 2 quadruples the bandwidth that Avanti can offer to the market. Having a reliable launch vehicle that is not only successful but also highly accurate to complete the delivery of the mission and ensure that growth is essential to our business. The highlight of any spacecraft procurement is the launch after all of the work that's gone into the on-ground testing. This is closely followed by our reception of first telemetry and carrying out our deployments, and of course starting our own orbit testing. Every phase is just as exciting to the people involved. Really though, as an operator, Avanti looks forward to the completion of all of these phases so that we can start providing a service to our customers.
6 minutes to go in the upper stage burn. We have been picked up by our next to last tracking station on the east coast of Africa, this time in Libreville in Gabon. It receives telemetry for 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll see burnout of the upper stage. Till Ariane 3, the last downrange station, was in the Ivory Coast. For Ariane 4, we needed a new one farther east, so set one up here in Libreville in 1986. Our next film will give us a look inside Avanti, the UK operators of HYLAS 2. Back with more.
We connect people wherever they are. We believe anything is possible and everything is personal. We are Avanti Communications. We help millions of people go where they want to go.
Avanti was the first company outside the Americas to pioneer the new generation of high-frequency Ka-band communications technology. We've invested over $800 million in a fleet of 3 satellites, which covers Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Avanti operates a cloud technology platform, which means that our service providers can act and behave as though they owned the satellites themselves. A service provider can log on to an Avanti satellite from anywhere in the world and manage the platform flexibly. We also prioritise commercial flexibility. We work very hard to give our customers what they want. We also prioritise resilience. So, for example, Avanti's Gateway Earth stations are dual redundant, which means that we offer the highest quality, the highest uptime service in the market. So a combination of our pioneering move into new technology early, our flexible business model, and our resilience means that we're the company of choice to bring the freedom of communication to new users in Africa and the Middle East. And within those geographies, the 4 application markets are broadly the same. Broadband. We provide broadband products that can be sold to consumers, businesses, or governments. There's an important social impact to HYLAS 2. Our services are in great demand across the Middle East and Africa, but the demand and supply statistics are wildly out of balance. For example, in sub-Saharan Africa, there are more than 500 million people who live more than 25 kilometers away from a fibre network. And yet in that region, GDP growth is running at 6%. 7 of the world's top 10 fastest growing economies are to be found in Africa. And so I'm delighted to be doing business on a continent where economic growth is not constrained by recession or sovereign debt problems, but I'm also pleased that we're bringing the freedom of communications to a new generation of public sector, business and consumer users. We firmly believe that Avanti has an early mover advantage in these key markets of Africa and the Middle East. We're so convinced that before the launch of HYLAS 2, we've already financed HYLAS 3, which will be putting more capacity into West Africa. The launch of HYLAS 1 pioneered a new generation of communications in Europe, and today we bring that technology to Africa and the Middle East. With the launch of HYLAS 2 today, we can pause to reflect upon a magnificent achievement. But we don't miss a beat in our commitment to deliver the freedom of communications to help our customers go wherever they want to go.
Two minutes to go in the upper stage burn. You can see our speed on the left. We're at 9 kilometers per second already. We've been picked up by our last downrange tracking station in Africa, this time on the east coast, Malindi in Kenya. Continuing our look at our satellite builders and operators, a feature now on Orbital Sciences Corporation, builders of HYLAS 2.
Orbital's Star Geo satellites are the market leader in small geostationary communications satellites. The world's leading satellite operators rely on Star satellites to provide direct-to-home television broadcasting, cable television distribution, mobile communications, broadband, and other communications services. Orbital is also an industry leader in the design and manufacture of smaller satellites for a variety of civil and military missions, including Earth and space science, national security space, technology demonstration, Earth imaging, and deep space exploration. Our robust, flexible, and flight-proven spacecraft platforms employ state-of-the-art designs, accommodate a wide variety of payloads, and provide affordable, reliable access to space. In addition, Orbital provides complete ground systems for the command and control of in-orbit spacecraft and the processing, distribution, and management of satellite data access. Orbital, innovation you can count on.
There has been recently, and will be even more in the future, experts are saying, a big growth in new Ka-band-based satellite services like HYLAS 2 provides. These allow much faster upload and download speed than either VSAT or MSS, and will probably, the experts say as well, expand the whole satellite market further. We are coming up on the extinction of the upper stage, and there it is, right on time. The DTO has called it out. You watch the nozzle shutting off now on the left. No more propulsion. We are coasting. We're in the fourth and final flight phase. This one is not powered. No more propulsion as we ready the composite for separation of her two passengers and the Silda. We've hit maximum speed, and you'll start seeing Ariane's velocity get slower. That's, again, the V line on the left. Remember our mass profile, 775 tons at liftoff. We're down now to 26 tons. You see most of that is fuel. What remains of Ariane, the upper stage, now empty of fuel, the vehicle equipment bay, that's the white band on the left, the two satellites, on the right is Intelsat, their adapters, and the Silda carrying structure, that's in the middle, that black bell-shaped structure, which is carrying HYLAS 2. The ratio in this sort of system, talking about weight between payload mass and propellant mass, 1%. It's the standard used all over the world. If you prefer, the launcher weighs about 100 times more, basically, than the passengers it's carrying. We are coming up on separation of one of those passengers in about a minute and a half, I would say. So a word on satellite separation may be in order. Separation, of course, marks an end as well as a beginning, the end of the launch vehicle's mission for this particular satellite, but also the start of the satellite's own life. Before explaining how a satellite is separated, maybe first an idea of how it's attached to the upper stage. The satellite is basically a cylinder. It looks square on the diagram there because the solar panels folded in, giving it a square look. But the cylinder is fixed on an adapter by a clamp which encircles the satellite and keeps it in place on the adapter. Separation is triggered by the clamp, which is cut at one point and then, of course, becomes loose. And this frees the satellite from the adapter and releases a number of springs, usually 8, I think, in the system that we're using, but I may be wrong. The satellite then moves away from the composite, which activates 2 switches, signaling separation, and it's this information that is transmitted to the ground. And this we'll get in a few seconds for Intelsat 20, so we know where we are. We're waiting for the DDO to call out separation of Intelsat 20. We're approaching the right altitude and the right speed. Everyone is waiting roughly 10 seconds. Another intense moment here of concentration, as it's a nice shot of the faces there, watching the boards, watching the numbers.
Séparation Intelsat 20.
And there we are. The first good news, separation of our first passenger, Intelsat, Ariane 5, successfully completing the first part of her mission. You see the people here in Jupiter very politely holding their applause until the second passenger is separated. That has become something of a tradition here. I don't believe it's planned among the passengers beforehand. Something else not planned, we have a surprise guest here in the broadcast booth who has just walked in, Claude Berna of Arianespace. Hi, Claude.
Hi, Jos, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to react.
We're welcome to have you. Claude needs no introduction to anyone familiar with the broadcast or with Arianespace. You were head of the Vega program here in Kourou, where you have a new title?
Till last February, with this maiden launch.
Claude is very kindly going to explain the maneuvers that Ariane 5 must carry out in between separation of the two satellites. It's a critical time for the satellite and for the launcher, would you say?
Yes, but let me say first that I was outside for the liftoff. I was on the terrace here in Jupiter. It was really, really marvelous. It was incredibly blue. The sky was blue, no clouds, and we can follow the trajectory perfectly, vertically first and slightly towards the east. And we saw the separation of the two boosters. It was really, really impressive.
Impressive, and you're hearing that from somebody who's seen, what, 100 launches? More than 100?
Oh, more than 100.
So it's always an impressive sight here for everybody involved. So tell us about this critical time, which is called the ballistics phase. What's going on?
So now we are in ballistic phase. There is no thrust on the ECS stage, as you can see. And we are now preparing the launch vehicle in the position to separate the top of the cover of the Silda. You know that inside we have HYLAS, and in this position we will separate the cover, then we will reposition the launch vehicle in the direction requested by HYLAS.
Now this is also called the space ballet, which is a very evocative term.
Yes, we call it a space ballet because, as you saw on the picture, was these small jets on the thrusters giving the roll or the position. You can see perfectly now on the screen what's happened with these small jets.
And you can see them popping off. That's the white bit. They're using. You can't really call it propulsion. Can you? Because we're not using propulsion.
No, we are not using propulsion. We are using a system called a SCAR on this stage. Okay, there is no more thrust on the main engine, as you can see.
So we're coasting, but because we're coasting, that doesn't mean that nothing is happening, because the composite, as you say, is being maneuvered. There you can see the thrusters popping on and off. They're spun in a series of operations.
Yes, there's a series of operations, I said. We can spin, as you said, also exactly now. You see where the jet in the two directions, giving this small hole. Look at that, exactly. And we are preparing the separation. And we continue to have a slight decrease of the speed. We are now at 8.6 kilometers per second.
But we're still climbing in altitude.
We are still climbing, yes. We are more than 1,600 kilometers.
Because we have to separate the first satellite in one direction, which has already happened. Then the Silda has to go in another direction and another altitude. And then finally the second satellite has to go in another direction and a third altitude.
Exactly. And this, of course, is done to avoid any collision in space.
Right. So this is, as you say, the attitude and control system. This is on board the computer?
This is on board, yes. And there is a series of commands giving the opening and the closing of these valves.
Okay, we have some happy reactions from Intelsat. We'll be hearing from him later on after the speeches. Now, the thrusters, you say, we saw them. They're located on the outside of the upper stage. And there are 12 of them, I believe. Is that the right number?
There is 12, yes, opening with a sort of, as you said, a sort of a command sent by the onboard computer, each other, and they are climbing or they are jetting, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Now, they can move the composite in any direction, yaw, pitch, roll.
But requested by of course, by the flight program. And now, look, we are exactly now very close from the separation of the Silda cover.
And that Silda due to be separated in just about 40 seconds, I would say. We had the first series of maneuvers positioning Intelsat and releasing Intelsat, and now we're positioning the Silda, which is the black bell-shaped structure, which is going to be released in just about under 30 seconds, I believe. And then we'll have another series of maneuvers once the Silda is gone for the second pass.
For the benefit of HYLAS too.
For HYLAS too.
And of course, on top of this cover, we can see the adapter remaining attached to the Silda cover, the adapter of Intelsat 20.
Now, these attitude maneuvers can separate the spacecraft and the Silda in the most precise spots, exactly where they should.
Système de lancement double Ariane.
Exactly where they should be, and this is what we just had.
So you can see the opening
of the Silda, and this is again the same system. The springs pushing the Silda away from the mothership.
Exactly, 6 springs are pushing the cover out of the satellite, and there is a new maneuver to reorient the composite, the launch vehicle, and HYLAS in the orientation given and requested by HYLAS.
So you see HYLAS now exposed to the elements. That's all that's left of our 775 tons, one satellite weighing 3 tons, and the VEB, which weighs what, about a ton?
Yes, about a ton. So in a few seconds?
In a few seconds, we will have separation of HYLAS 2 in just under a minute. There are 6 versions of the Silda, I believe, right? From 4.9 to 6.4 meters in diameter. We're using a big one tonight.
For this dual launch, we use roughly the same for each launch.
Each launch, and it weighs what, 450?
50
kilos. Again, more dead weight, just like the fairing. That we don't need anymore. Now, we're waiting for separation of HYLAS. Again, a very intense moment for the crew, the people from Avanti.
Séparation HYLAS 2.
It's done.
Well done. Well, you heard the applause. The final good news, Ariane 5 successfully releasing her second passenger. You see what that looks like up there. The mood, as you see, very buoyant here in Jupiter and all across the Space Center, and at all the points and posts where the people are working or following the launcher and the satellites. Handshakes, champagne coming up. Work is just beginning, or soon will be beginning, at all the different ground stations and at the other centers around the world where the satellite's first maneuvers are being monitored. So from those tense minutes just moments ago, you can see the change of mood here in Jupiter, and this is echoed, of course, around the world at all the outposts and offices where people involved in the 2 satellite projects are following the happy outcome of events. Ariane, once again delivered, but lots more ahead, in particular the speeches. So don't go away. We're going to be hearing, of course, first from Jean-Yves Le Gall, Arianespace Chairman and CEO, and then we will be hearing from Intelsat And from Luc Froliger, Senior Director of Acquisitions at Intelsat. We'll be hearing also from David Williams of HYLAS. And then finally, we'll be hearing from Geneviève Fiorasso, the French Minister of Research and Higher Learning, by phone from Paris. We saw her earlier in the news. All these people here, the gentlemen here who will be speaking, will be making their ways out from the fishbowl very shortly to join us in Jupiter. Jean-Yves Le Gall will be first. He's shaking hands inside and receiving and extending congratulations. And then he'll be making his way out towards the podium, out here on the out from the fishbowl to the VIP side of things. Before that, we have a first launch replay. Beautiful shots. Not often that we have a daytime launch. Claude was very impressed by that, by the daytime launch. That was a first in a series of replays from the different observation sites on the base. We hope to get them to you from the different sites before the broadcast ends. We're waiting now for the traditional post-launch speeches, again from Jean-Yves Le Gall, who is making his way to the podium. And he will be speaking first. The next voice you'll hear will be from Jean-Yves Le Gall, Chairman and CEO of Arianespace. Mr. Le Gall, you have the floor.
Comme vous l'avez vu, ce 64e
64th launch of Ariane 5 just placed into orbit Intelsat 20 and HYLAS 2, and I'm very happy about this, of course. First, because, as you'll have guessed, we just have had success with 50 launches of Ariane 5 in a row, which is an outstanding performance, which all of Europe can really be proud of and rejoice at. Next, because we're breaking on this occasion the world record of mass injected into GTO with a total of some 10.2 tons. We'd broken the previous record last year with slightly over 10 tons. This shows the relevance in our improvement policy, the relevance of our improvement policy, which enables us to increase the capacity of our launchers while preserving its outstanding reliability. Last, because tonight's countdown again was letter perfect. For the fourth time in a row, we are lifting off at H0, making it possible for a new launch on time, which confirms the skill and the maturity of our operational teams. In some, and the conditions are appropriate, I'd like to say that Ariane 5 is in Olympic shape. Should we give the launcher the bronze, silver, gold medal? I guess you got an idea about this. But we can be very happy and very satisfied because if you were here 10 years ago when we had some complicated problems, I guess very few people thought that we would have one day 50 successes in a row. We did it. We made it. Let me first thank very warmly our clients, Intelsat and Avanti, who through their trust gave us the opportunity to flesh out this triple success, as well as all those who came attending the launch here at the CSG. First, Intelsat 20. With unmitigated pleasure, let me turn to our friends of Intelsat, who tonight have trusted us for the 53rd time. In fact, one payload out of 6 launched by the Ariane launchers since the start was for Intelsat. This proves, better than any words, the quality and intensity of our relationships. With a satellite as powerful as Intelsat 20, built by Space Systems L'Oreal, we are certain that Intelsat will be able to meet the growing demand of its customers, in particular on the African continent. Let me then salute very warmly my friend Dave McGlade in Washington, D.C., looking at us from Washington, D.C., and Jean-Luc Freliger, present here, who will talk here, who is present. Let me thank them for their loyalty toward us. HYLAS 2 right now, Avanti brilliantly made its debut back in 2010 with the launch of its first satellite, HYLAS 1, by Ariane 5 already. And no doubt you'll like that because you entrusted us, David, with your second satellite built by Orbital Science Corporation. We're very proud of having been selected by Avanti to contribute to the development of the broadband data transmission by satellite. Once again, thank you, Avanti, and to my friend David Williams for his trust, which is renewed in us. But tonight, I'm sure you will not hold it against me on this occasion of the 50th consecutive success. Let me take a bit more time than is usual to pay tribute to all those in Europe, like in Guyana, have prepared this for years. The launcher and its installations in which has had success reinforced the position of Europe on the international space scene. Let me first pay tribute to the ESA, which back in 1985 decided to initiate the Ariane 5 program at the initiative of France and Professor Hubert Curien. The National Center for Space Studies that designed and developed this launcher was exceptional and continuing in Guyana to play a key role in its implementation. Let me pay tribute to all the European space industry, in particular our prime contractor, Astrium, as well as Safran, MT Aerospace, Avio, Rec from Switzerland, Sapka, Dutch Space, Air Liquide, Volvo, Clemson, and all the others, which I might forget. He can be exhaustive, and of course, let me pay tribute to all the teams of Arianespace, who again showed their commitment and their excellence, which make for our reputation on the international scenes for over more than 30 years. Obviously, thanks to all you, Europe and Guyana, Ariane 5 is going concern, which will be going strong for a very long time to come after this launch. And thanks to all the contracts that we have signed since the start of the year, we have in fact on the order books not less than 19 launches for Ariane 5, guaranteeing more than 3 years of activities ahead of us. Thank you and well done to all of you. We can now applaud them warmly. I'm wearing a hat. 50, let me wear this hat. 50. I told you I'm wearing my cap and give the floor for their statement to our client, Jean-Luc Freliger for Intelsat 20, and to Mr. David Williams for HYLAS 2. And then Mrs. Geneviève Fioraso, Minister for Higher Education and Research, who will speak to us from Grenoble, from France. She will speak live later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Yves, and congratulations to this major milestone for Arianespace. Well, another launch of an Intelsat satellite by an Arianespace launch vehicle, and another success. It's been now 53 Intelsat satellites that have been launched by Arianespace, more than any other launch service provider in the world. Intelsat is in the middle of a large fleet enhancement program with 5 satellite launches planned this year. This was our 3rd launch. We've got 2 more launches planned before the end of the month. Intelsat 20, which was just launched, is our most powerful satellite to date. It actually doesn't replace only 1 satellite, it replaces 2 of our satellites, Intelsat 7 and Intelsat 10. So what's going to happen now is once we complete orbit raising and in-orbit checkout of the satellite will be moved to its final position at 68.5 degrees east, where it will have coverage of Europe, Asia, Middle East, Russia, and Africa. Equipped with 60 Ku-band and 24 C-band transponders, the satellite will provide VSAT and solar backhaul services, as well as DTH service for our prime video neighborhood in Asia. Last but not least, the satellite hosts the largest DTH platform ever for Africa and that is for our customer multi-choice. Now, it really needs a team effort to design, build, test, launch, and then operate a satellite. For nearly 30 years, the teams at Space Systems Loral, Arianespace, and Intelsat have proven that they are among the best when it gets to create customer value for Intelsat and its customer. So I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the teams involved, not only for today's success, but for the last 30 years. So to the team in Évry, Kourou, Palo Alto, and Washington, D.C., a big thank you. I look forward to come back here to Kourou for the launch of our next satellite, ISDLA-1, another one of our satellites being built by Space Systems Loral that will fly on an Ariane 5. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be here celebrating another successful launch of an Avanti satellite with Arianespace. The access to space, which is guaranteed by Arianespace, CNES, ESA, and their industrial partners, is crucial to our industry. And I'm grateful again to Jean-Yves Le Gall and his team for their excellent work. Aujourd'hui, je suis heureuse de donner la médaille d'or à France. I also congratulate Orbital, who've worked very hard to bring this complicated satellite to the launch with a very good schedule and a good budget. We've enjoyed a productive and efficient relationship with Dave Thompson and his team, and we are a happy customer. We're blessed with supportive long-term investors, and the launch of this satellite today is an important catalyst in the process of handsomely repaying their support and trust. We also benefit from support from our home government in the United Kingdom. The industrial policy of the UK Space Agency and the ministries involved has been wise, and we're very grateful for their ongoing support. I'm personally deeply committed to making further contributions to strengthening the UK space industry. Team GB achieves great things in space, as I noticed we did today in the Olympic Games. Finally, a very big thank you to the Avanti team. I'm very proud that the entrepreneurial culture still thrives despite our growing scale. I'm amazed by the quality and pace of the work that our team constantly achieves. Avanti is the world's fastest growing Ka-band satellite operator. With coverage now across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, we provide flexible and resilient high-speed data services in government, enterprise, and consumer markets. We prioritize flexibility and resilience so that our service providers can trust Avanti to deliver in the most challenging environments and to the most demanding specifications. The launch of HYLAS-1 pioneered a new generation of communications for Europe, and today we bring this great leap forward to Africa and the Middle East. We can pause tonight to reflect on a great engineering achievement, but we won't miss a beat in our mission to connect people wherever they are. We will help millions of people to go where they want to go. Thank you.
Bien, je pense qu'à présent, Madame Fioraso doit être en ligne.
Mrs. Fioraso is online. I guess I am online.
Madame la Ministre.
Merci. Je voudrais tout d'abord vous saluer.
I would like to congratulate Mr. Jean-Yves Le Gall, CEO of Arianespace. Congratulations once again to you and to your team. I would like to thank Mr. Fröhlinger for Intelsat and his teams. I would also like to thank and congratulate Mr. David Williams for Avanti. I'd like to congratulate everybody here in Kourou. I'd like to thank as well the people on the internet who've shared with us the beauty of this launch. I wanted to be with you. I wanted to congratulate you. Well done to you all. I would like to congratulate all these teams that I've worked with passion and professionalism to transform this launch into a success. It's a great pleasure. I'm very moved. It's a first time I share such an event. It's a new launch of Ariane that has put into orbit 2 telecom satellites. as Minister of Higher Education and Research in charge of space, I would like to insist on the fact that I think this European space research is very important. This is it's a great success in Europe. It's the 208th launch of Ariane. It's a great adventure. It's a great success for France and Europe. It will be the 64th launch of an Ariane 5, the 4th launch of the year. But today is a very special day, as you said, because we are celebrating its 50th success in a row since 2003. So thanks to this launch, we now have in GTO 2 telecommunication spacecrafts, Intelsat 20 for Intelsat, the international operator, and HYLAS 2 for the European operator, Avanti, in other words. I would like to thank both operators for the trust they've put in Arianespace. This success proves that Europe can have access to space in an independent way. It's based on three stakeholders, ESA, CNES, and Arianespace. The French Guyana, the Space Center in French Guyana is the spaceport of Europe. For more than 20 years, it's made of a complex system of facilities. These facilities work in full coordination to transform launches into successes. I'd like to congratulate all the teams in Guyana. I'd like to tell them that I will guarantee the dynamism generated by the Space Center to Guyana, France, and Europe. I would also like to congratulate Arianespace that for years now has been #1 in the launching of spacecrafts. It has more than 50% of the world market. Space is a priority for our country. France and space, it's a great adventure, a scientific one, industrial, technological adventure. The French government has always created the development of space research. One of my predecessors, probably the most famous one, most famous Minister of Research, my mentor, if you want, which Professor Hubert Curien, has contributed to this major success. It's in line with his vision that I will go on supporting the space policy, an ambitious policy, ambitious for our country and for Europe. France and Europe can be proud of this success. We have a council meeting of ESA, and you know that we have to make radical choices, radical for the future of space in Europe. We have to take a major decision, a difficult, complex decision that has to take into account science, technology, but also the viewpoint of industrialists, of operators. We have to assess their impact on jobs, employment, safety, security of launches, and their costs. We have to take their costs into account. After discussing with all the different stakeholders, I will suggest to the Minister a position. As you know, ESA Council is meeting in November. We will work in full coordination with our European partner. We are discussing with them in September. But tonight, I would like to take some time to share with you this great event. I would like to say how I admire this sector, which is, make us dream. Young people are attracted by this, and we have to stimulate this youth in France, in Europe, in developed countries, if we want to remain leaders in the world, in our own sector. So once again, congratulations to you all. Congratulations, you've done an excellent job, and thanks for having made me live such a great event, full of emotion. I thank you once again, and I wish you a great evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Minister, for these very kind words. Once again, well done to all of you. And next launch will be in September. 2 launches are provided for in Baikonur with the Soyuz, METOP B on 16th September, and a few days later, here in Guyana, Ariane 5 with Astra 2F and GSAT on 21st September. Once done, well done to all of you, and well, let's celebrate our 50th consecutive launch.
Not only a performance record, big news from Kourou, but 50 straight launches for Ariane 5. You can see the logo on the upper left there, 50 in a row for Ariane. And over these fine shots of a replay, we will say goodbye. Ariane's 4th launch of the year, a resounding success. 2 new telecom satellites on their ways and beginning life. Second half of the year is going to be very full here. The order book is also full. 28 launchers currently in production, 20 orders for launches on Ariane 5, and 15 for Soyuz, and 3 for Vega. Our next launch, as you heard Mr. Legal say here, September 21st, we'll be here. We hope you will be too. Until then, on behalf of everybody here at the Space Base, Joshua Jampel saying thank you to my friend Claude Berna for coming in. It was fun.
Opportunity.
It was great. And we thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. We're looking forward to being with you next time. Goodbye, everybody.